baby. Look at that bad boy.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what we're talking about. Guys, David Fine here from Watch Your Lip. This is our Fast Fish Beach Fishing series where we're going to teach you how to become a successful beach fisherman. Today we're going to be talking about the bait numero uno for a beach fisherman. We're going to be talking about the pilchard. How to catch them, how to use them, where to hook them. One of the best baits that you can possibly have as a beach fisherman. You want a live well full of these guys if you want a successful day on the beach. So guys, stay tuned. Let's get into it. The scaled sardine, Haringula jaguana, the pilchard, and the pilchard is actually a very generic term. The scaled sardine is actually its real name, but we call them pilchards. It's a term that's used for various different types of sardines around the world. But in Southeast Florida, pilchard means one thing. It means you go to the beach, you go offshore, you're using pilchards, and you're catching fish, because it is literally probably the most universal bait in South Florida. Anywhere you go, whether it be in 1 foot of water, fishing for snook or really shallow water, all the way out to the pelagic sailfish, mahi-mahi, a pilchard is the way to go. Everything loves them. In the spring and summer months, the pilchards come in these massive migrations and literally corral themselves up on the beaches and in the jetties, on the inlets in Southeast Florida, and they're pretty much present all summer long and all spring long. In the beginning of the spring, they start out a little bit smaller. They're usually pretty tiny, about 1 inch long. And as the spring goes on and as the summer goes on, they get bigger and bigger. And then by the end of the summer, you get those big 5-6 inch pilchards that we love to use for big fish, okay? But I've caught massive tarpon on a 2-inch pilchard. So, you know, put them out on a hook and get ready. You're gonna hook up. Pretty much everything eats them. Everything from snook, tarpon, jacks, cudas, mangrove snapper, absolutely love them. We shred the mangrove snapper at night on the beaches in the summer months. Barracudas, mackerels, bluefish, kingfish, everything will eat a pilchard, guys. So having a live well full of these guys is the way to go. Well, how do I find pilchards, Dave? Well, when you go to the beach during the spring and summer, if it's during the middle of the day, typically, my understanding is the pilchard schools will actually hang out a little deeper, and you might not be able to access them as easily and as readily during the middle of the day. But closer towards the mid to late afternoon, probably around 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, those schools get pushed in. And I don't know if it's because predatory fish start feeding on them. Bonita love them, jacks, tarpon, they start crashing them, they corral up on the shoreline. And usually if you go to the beach, pretty much any beach, from after 5 p.m. in the afternoon until sundown, you're probably going to run into some pilchard schools. After the sun goes down, they go back offshore, and I think they go solitary during the night, and they start reschooling up again at daylight in the morning. Using a sabiki is a great way to catch pilchards, but sabikis are a little messy. I don't typically fish sabikis on the beach unless I just don't want to get wet, which I love the water, so I'm typically swimming anyway. I usually bring a cast net. So I bring a 5 or 6 foot cast net, and usually 1 or 2 throws with a 5 or 6 foot cast net can give you enough bait to last the rest of the evening, no problem. You know, they call them greenies because the top of the back, the dorsal part of the fish, is green, and then the sides are silver. So if you're looking down at them, they're actually little tiny green fish. You'll see them swimming by you very, very rapidly, and they're always swimming around very, very quickly. They stay underneath the water, but when they start to get fed on by predatory fish, they'll start to bubble up on the top of the water, and they'll start to pop on top, make tiny little splashes on top. You'll start to see their little silver sides flashing, and then when you start seeing that, you're gonna go throw your cast net, and if you open up even partially on your cast net, you're gonna get enough bait. Or if you throw a sabiki rig in the middle of that, you're going to get a stringer full of pilchards every time. When you're looking for pilchards, make sure you have a good pair of polarized glasses. That helps tremendously seeing the bait. Maybe when they're not quite as startled and they're not up on top, you can actually see them a lot better in the water, scurrying by your feet. Sometimes just in knee-deep water, guys, as they're running over a sandbar, you have a polarized glasses and you'll be able to see them. When the tide is low, and it's an outgoing tide, the tide is low, sometimes you'll need to go out onto the sandbar or past the sandbar in order to find the schools in the afternoon. When the tide's in, guys, the pilchards are jammed right up in the gully that's formed in between the beach and the sandbar. They love hanging out in that deep gully, and usually you can cast them right from shore, or you're in ankle deep water and you throw a cast net and you find all the pilchards you want. Have a good aerator system ready. With some fresh water, guys. Pilchards can be a little wimpy. It's not like a mullet. It's not like a goggle eye that are very hardy. Now, pilchards are wimpy. They need to be pampered a little bit. So you don't overcrowd them in your bucket. So if you have a bait bucket, you have an aerator system, don't put too many in. A couple dozen pilchards in a bucket is more than enough, okay? You don't want to put 100 pilchards in a 5-gallon bucket. You're going to kill them all, because they release toxins in the water through urea, and they wind up sucking that down. They wind up dying because of toxins, not because there's not enough oxygen in the water. So have a good aerator. Don't overcrowd your bait. It's a really good thing to switch out your water every half hour, an hour. Dump 70% of the water out of the bucket and then go and put some fresh water in. That'll keep your bait fresh, and they'll live a long time. Guys, in the pilchard schools, a lot of times other types of bait fish will hide in the pilchard schools. You'll find sardines, you'll find goggle eyes, you'll find ballyhoo, you'll find smelt, cigar minnows. There's all kinds of things that hide out in the pilchard schools. So as you're casting, look, you might even find some threadfin herring in the midst of your pilchard schools. Pretty cool. All right, so what type of rig do you use when you're fishing pilchards? I like to use like a 40-pound fluorocarbon leader, maybe 60. I wouldn't go too much heavier than that. A lot of times our snook and tarpon can be leader shy, and if you're getting into barracuda, even if you have 80-pound monofilament, it's not going to make much of a difference because they're going to bite you off anyway. So I go 40 to 60 pound. I probably use a 3 to 4 foot piece of fluorocarbon leader, and depending on the size of your bait will be depending on the size of your hook. So a 2.0 all the way to a 4.0, depending on the size of your bait, will be the appropriate hook size. If your pilchards are real small, you might even need to go down to a 1.0, because if the hook is too big, it'll kill them pretty quick. Where to hook your pilchard? There's a couple different ways. They've got a great piece of cartilage in their nose structure, so you can go literally in one nostril and out the other, and that cartilage will be a good place to hold that hook in place, and they live pretty well that way. Only problem with that is you try to cast it too hard, the bait flies off, and nothing drives you more mad when you walk a bait fish out and you're chest deep and you're trying to get it out to where the tarpon are over the top of the sandbar, and you walk all the way out there and you throw your bait and your bait comes off the hook, and now you have to walk all the way back in and get a new bait. That drives me crazy. There's another place I like to hook them, right behind the pectoral fin. There's literally right behind the pectoral fin, there's a little soft spot, and the point of the hook literally slides right in there. But something about that spot, there's some ligaments and integument that hold the hook in place, and you can actually whip that thing out really, really well, and they stay alive. It's not going through any major organs, so the bait stays alive, they stay fresh, and they swim like crazy. So that's where I'm hooking my pilchards now, behind the pectoral fins, in one side and out the other. There's a really soft spot. It's like God designed the pilchard to be hooked there. It's like a very, very strategic gift from God for a fisherman, putting that place there for us to hook them. When you're fishing the pilchards in the surf, you can flatline them for snook, and literally the snook travel right up and down the trough. So you can just flatline, no weight at all. You can even use a bobber. I've used a cork or a bobber a few times, and actually my biggest snook I caught with a bobber and a flatline pilchard, Delray Beach. It was a 39-incher. That's one strategy. Guys, but if you're gonna use a weight, if you're gonna flip them in close for snook, just a small egg weight, I guess it depends on your surf conditions. If there's a lot of current, if there's a lot of weeds, you're gonna need to use more weight. The more current, the more weeds there are. So I would use between 20 and 30 pound test rigs and use 4 or 5 ounces of weight, pyramid sinkers, and you can launch them out there. The tarpon typically hang out on the other side of the sandbar. Snook can hang out, they travel up inside the sandbar. Tarpon, unless they're feeding in a feeding frenzy, they tend to hang out on the other side of the sandbar, so you got to launch them out a little bit, and you got to try and get those big fat pilchards, those big 6-inchers, and you want a bigger weight to hold it down, hold your line out there so the tarpon can find it. When you're casting your pilchard, even if you hook it behind the pectoral fins, guys, you got to give the pilchard a little bit of TLC because they are kind of wimpy. So if you want your bait to live, don't try to whip it out there like you're trying to get it to the Bahamas. Give it a little TLC, give yourself a little cast, but don't overpower it, don't over muscle it, because you'll cast the bait off or you'll kill the bait. That's just my 2 cents. Pilchards, guys, they make great frozen bait. They make great cut bait. What I'll do typically, I'll fish live bait, live pilchards during the day, and as the sun goes down, I'll keep some in a cooler, and I'll start using them as cut bait and catch mangrove snapper with them. And that is the best bait for catching mangrove snapper on the beaches. That's in another episode though. We'll tell you all about how to do that. They make great chum. They're a very oily fish. So if you're gonna make chum, this is a great base for your chum. It's very plentiful during the summertime. We have another video on that, how to make your own chum blocks using pilchards as your base. And so guys, pilchards are a great bait. They're universal, they're amazing. Use them and you will catch fish, I promise. Guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what you'd like to see next and we will do our best to give you what you need because we want to help you catch fish. So guys, God bless, take care, stay safe. Let's get out there and rip some lips. Watch your lip. Take care.